of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Matt, may we please have roll call?
Gunsler Zadi.
Here.
Hansen.
Here.
Hickerson. Thompson.
Here.
Malonis.
Here.
Bingham. Pedri.
Here.
Demas.
Here.
Mayor Mickelson.
Here. Okay. So this evening we have a presentation on Parks and Rec. JJ Severud will present that to us. And then I will open it up for council to ask him questions. And then at the end of that, we'll open it up for public comment. I would let everyone know to expect this to be an agenda item on our May 6th council meeting. So with that, Mr. Severud.
Your Honor, Councilman, Council lady, I want to first thank everyone for, I believe this is the 5th workshop that has happened on behalf of Parks and Rec in my now 6.5 months. So I appreciate your time and attention. It's been an interesting 5 months or so. So anyway, the reason I'm gathered here is the initiative in front of us right now is the Rock Springs Civic Center, the future of the Civic Center. And what I kind of want to do is not only to create some public awareness to what's going on, but make sure there's understanding across the board, across the council about what's being talked about, our challenges, what we're looking at. This presentation does tend to lean on the challenges more than every opportunity, but with recent budget discussions, everything, and also activity in the legislature, this is kind of where we're ending up, and my perspective on where things land with the Civic Center right now. So, yeah, future considerations. So obviously, with the people behind me, this matters a ton. Huge legacy down there. I'm sure everybody in there went down there, has memories as a kid, as do I. Went off the high dive. It served thousands and thousands of people. It's central to our downtown hub. It's part of our downtown. It's part of our community identity. The impact isn't just emotional. There is, some practical issues with some access differences between Family Rec Center, location on which side of town. So those do come into play. There's much more, of course. These kind of highlight what we've heard and where top concerns lie. So why now? What's driving it? Why did this kick off? As you know, we did basically a full park and rec strategic plan with Barry Dunn. A lot of it, although it was broad, a lot of it centered on the issues that we have with our facilities. Civic Center is identified, obviously, as one of the ones needing the most attention or having the most concern. So that's one of it. We are starting to see some runaway costs when we start looking at some of the things that just are these ongoing things are breaking, and we're having partial fixes, and we're taping it up, and we're figuring it out, or we're doing without. Those things are driving up. Those costs are driving up. These deferred projects, they're at a place where, especially with the roof and water penetration through that roof causing mold problems now that we're finding out, we're at a tipping point. We got to fix something on that building, or it's going to become problematic in more ways than just it's expensive, it's redundant, all these things we've heard in the past. So, and then, just because I've been sitting through this with a good number of you guys, or you're already aware, we're having some budget challenges this year. Every department head here has been in meetings, and we've all had the red pen taken out on us. So also driving it, I suspect. If we had a surplus of money to fix some of this, I guess we wouldn't even be here, or I wouldn't be making this presentation. All right, our current state, like I said, we had a news post that kind of mentioned that maybe the parking lot was the highest concern. It does need a full replacement, as noted through our engineer department. However, not the biggest problem. Our biggest problem is that roof. We wanted to try to get it fixed 6 years ago. Same kind of thing as this year. We just didn't have it. We didn't have the funding. And now that water intrusion is showing up, and the water intrusion is creating walls that are falling down and roofs are falling down that are exposing asbestos. So it's a double-headed monster there that we're not too excited about. The facility stability, we still, until we get that assessed, it's still a huge unknown and one of the biggest concerns that we have, especially as far as costs of keeping that structure upright that we have. That would still need to be assessed, but it's there. We have more systems than I got fingers that are an end-of-life cycle. You know, our filtration system for our pool, the deck on our pool, the pool, it's the plaster itself, our electrical, our fire panel. We have issues with our not physical, but our address system that is important for safety. And it keeps moving in this regard on multiple other items. Like I just mentioned, pool, fire, electrical. Also, not often mentioned, but part of it, that building's running on 63% of the full-time staff that it was originally staffed at when I started in 2012. I don't think that that's sustainable. We've been dealing with it, but I don't know that there's another department or maybe someone that knows that there's been a almost 40% reduction in their staff and they've maintained. So something to be brought forward. Like I said, critical and timely roof leaks. I mention these as timely because I feel like these need to be done in the next year. But roof leaks, ceiling damage, and this water stains, crumbling walls, these are all part of some things I pulled from Barry Dunn. The stability issues, that means we need an assessment. We have a couple air conditioners that are barely hanging on, so I don't know how hot that building's gonna be this summer, but it's gonna, that's a concern. And then, yeah, we're not, our fire panel and ADA, that could all be this year. Not so much the ADA, but the fire, and that leaks into ADA and safety. The structural instability, unresolved. We have to get a forensic or structural engineer that comes in, especially this gets difficult because the foundation under the pool is unknown. We know it's sinking. You can see that visually, but what does that mean? And that creates an issue because right now, like normally a pool is rehabbed or rebuilt in 35 years. It's a really old pool, and ours is 46. So right now, you know, you're seeing evidence of that everywhere. And what does that mean as far as floor placement? I think it means a full pool rebuild, which means we got to knock down a wall to bring equipment in. That has to be stabilized. This is where some of these costs they can get into some runaway areas, which is kind of frightening. But anyway, like everyone knows, if they've ever had a fix in their house, cut open one wall and find out you have 5 other things that you didn't know needed to be fixed that now do. And like I mentioned, that's kind of a runaway cost issue. So what the experts are telling us, and I kind of consider also some of the, through our maintenance department, we've had, you know, contractors on site to give us some ideas of some of these challenges and what they're going to be. And, you know, a lot of them require engineering for them to even give us a decent quote. and because they're just so large. But Winters Griffith, the structural limits, and although not in the report, verbal meetings had them concerned about public information being brought forward that the building could possibly be condemned, which was kind of frightening at the time. But they also didn't know this requires an absolute, forensic engineer, which they acknowledged. They were architects. They didn't have that information. Barry Dunn, capital reinvestment, it's going to be costly, and which we're talking about now. So a recommendation, evaluate programs and transitions. Obviously, if there's a quick decision made on future of the Civic Center, those are going to happen in a quicker transition. But the recommendation was start looking at, what would those things be now? And then, we have to consider Parks and Recreation footprint and the best use of our resources, which as an incoming mayor, that was one of your first items was to consider what our footprint is and were there areas where we could look at reductions. And I don't think there was a department head in the room that was willing to offer you anything. I think we're all very prideful of the area that we serve and the people we serve. So nobody wanted to give you anything. So here's where we land. Okay, so there's the Civic Center is interesting because there is a lot, and this has been publicized how much we need to do with that building. So we're supposed to be on a tour of the golf course right now, as you all know. Now this is in place. You would see out there, and I hope to bring you out there soon this summer so that you can get an idea. But you saw what was at the rec center. The rec center is not ready. It's not fully ready to go. We can look in the next 15 years with no problems. You saw that it also needed much work. Compounding that, we have a clubhouse in Wataha, our ball fields, our main stands area. We got walls that are moving bricks out, and if brick can bend, I think that we have a brick wall that's bending out there. So there's stability concerns that are out there. But anyway, yeah, significant park and rec across all facilities. And how do we answer these questions? How are we going to fill all this in? As I sit amongst a bunch of other department heads that they got a list longer than mine of things they need to deal with. If we were redirecting funding from Civic Center at that point, that opens up some doors. It doesn't answer everything. This doesn't fix. I think the only answer to completely fixing it was wiping out Parks and Rec, in which I'm not advocate of that. I like what I do, and I like who we serve, and I like the opportunities in front of us. So not a fan of that. But if we do invest in the Civic Center, like I said, it's going to spread these out. We're going to get thinner. If we're opting to keep this as an amenity, we're going to do our best to do what we need to do so that we can safely serve those patrons like we have been. But it will put more of a constraint on all of our funds. Just a quick run through, rec center, HVAC, pool, electrical, ADA, same kind of things as Civic, not as serious as the Civic. Sewer issues in the golf clubhouse, that structure, egress, water issues, WTA, settling, drainage. It's, and all these things, you don't mention anything with this without having the word millions behind it. So a little history, what we haven't spent, what do we need? So as I mentioned, I hope this is all right, but yeah, $1 million was cut out of a proposed, fix to go into the Civic Center. With where we were at, that wasn't reasonable. We saw that. And I can say from my history of putting budgets together there for 12 years, that's consistent with what I've saw over the past 12 years. That's where it's landed. So every year there's a budget committee and a mayor tasked with some tough decisions and a council at whole. And this is where it ends up. This is how we got here. So the years of deferring this, that's why we're here. and then now, and this is where it gets crazier because the roof that cost us $220,000 in 2019 now costs us $500,000 in 2025. A lot of that was that COVID bump, but yeah, the more money we put into it is, are we getting enough of an ROI, whether measured in dollars or measured in community impact? Are we getting that money back? And I think that's the thing. Little quote: if you can't afford the maintenance, you can't afford the thing. Said by some guy on the internet that I found. Okay. I believe it's true. So we keep patching up. We keep things going. We're going to have escalating short-term repair costs. Those are happening. Budgets, and these are going to come in surprise manner, guys. They're going to come in boiler's gone on our pool. Facility boilers aren't working. This could happen also at the rec center. We now have a crack in our pool. We have seen some movement in the building that possibly means shutting it until we absolutely do get some engineering in there. That's kind of what I anticipate is that, or yeah, a roof failure that really does drive a closure, you know? But like I said, we have to almost immediately put funds towards roof and mold mitigation almost immediately. You know, there's opportunity cost at this. A new roof, like I said, it's $500,000. That's $500,000. Is that where I think every dollar spent on that building now is an investment in that building. We're investing now. And if we're investing in that building, what's the intention for the next 5 to 10 years? That's the question that needs to be asked. So, you know, and then, yeah, service disruptions, safety concerns, like I've mentioned. The abrupt service disruption is what I worry about, as well as safety. Big snowstorms, big rainstorm, some kind of weird shift. It seems like there's been a lot of earthquakes in California, but a little shaking around that building would scare me on what might happen. I'm throwing this in here as Mayor, you've thrown around $30 million, and just so everybody knows, that's coming out of a meeting that we had with Winters Griffith, I think nearly a year ago, about what they think would make the building whole. And we did some work on the back end to try to figure out, tighten up some of these costs. And you can't tighten them up without engineers and quotes and bids. And so some of these things they're left there. Just the foundation and pool reconstruction, anywhere from almost $5 to $9 million, which is crazy. But once you start thinking about tearing down, stabilizing a wall, bringing equipment in, digging it out, you're basically rebuilding a pool. That's the process, the rebuilding pool. And we're rebuilding it next to a creek. So, before you do that, we got to make sure that we're stabilized, and whether that's working with AML to get those filled in. If there even is a void there, we don't know that. The roof replacement and drainage and water mitigation and all that, I think that also kind of included some of the parking lot. That's where 1.6 to 2.5. HVA system, plumbing, ADA, interior, which includes like our locker rooms, maybe 8, maybe more. So estimated costs had it at 15 to 25.9. Those were kind of what we came up with once we had an idea of, all right, these are the things. We talked to contractors and we put some estimates. Those are really rough and broad. But when people say like, oh, 30 million is ridiculous, how much is it? Well, once we start tipping these, I call it's kind of a domino effect. Once we spend so much money on this building, it's going to require us to meet current codes. When that building doesn't meet any of the current fire code, electrical code, HVAC code, building code, even the steps going up to the locker room don't meet code. So, there's just a lot of little things. So those would exponentiate the costs, and that doesn't get me very excited. noting that even if we renovate it, we're looking at renovated buildings still have a limited timeline. It wouldn't be another 50-year building. It would be another 25, 30-year building. I know that gets out of maybe the scope of most in this room, but I think the investment, I think we're always investing 2 generations in front of us. Is that what we're supposed to be doing? So, like I mentioned just now, code compliance. Even if we undertook a project like this, that building would be closed for a couple of years anyway, just to get this work done. So one way or the next, people get displaced, and then long-time viability. As the winners of Griffith noted, it would probably be more viable to knock it down and build something new. So that's part of the conversation. And as I've already mentioned, it diverts money from other high-priority projects. If we go the other way, step back, we close it. We lose that rec space in that gym. We lose the deep end pool and we lose the climbing wall. There's no getting around that. Those are losses. We can't quickly replicate those. There's some if-thens about how we can work with school districts, college, Sweetwater County Events Complex, county, about finding some of these extra spaces to host our programs and how we can facilitate it for our youth groups in town or externals. The climbing wall, maybe there's a place where we can find a place in the rec center. Deep end pool's deep end pool. And the expense of building a deep end pool at the Civic Center is just like building a deep end pool, brand new one, at the rec center. It's going to be very expensive, but on the outset, non-replaceable, just so you know. Yeah, I think everyone kind of did. Programs and equipment transitioned. We'll take staff over. We're going to expand those hours. We're going to expand pool hours. There's going to be expanded programs. We would reach into every little corner we could to find ways to serve our city with the people that would now be displaced from the Civic Center. All those programs, and I think Bill Shalata might have put a list of them up there that Civic Center staff put together. Most of those travel. Those are traveling programs. They'll come with us. Some of them can't be. You can't get a diving board over there. And we're going to invest in this sustainable recreation assets moving forward. What can we afford while still maintaining it? Focus on our long-term solutions, and like I said, joint use agreements, partnerships. I've been working on that since I took my oath here, and probably 10 years before that. So that's how we'll try to get this done. Our commitments, longevity and sustainability. Equitable access, that means a lot of things to a lot of people. But yeah, we want as many people to have access into our buildings or our facilities as possible. That means we got to catch up on a lot of things just to make sure that we can do that. High quality services for every age. Yeah, we got to collaborate. We got to innovate to make this work. We'd have to, the loss of a facility that people are used to. And then, as usual, responsible use of public funds. Kind of going forward on that, expanded programming. We'd look to try to do some upgrades with the space, whether by construction or future planning, try to do better with accessibility. We've already done one little step. Mayor had a good idea for parking, and we've been able to implement that, which has helped to some degree. We feel like more is needed. Continued support for our youth senior aquatic programs. A lot of attention. I mentioned those 3 because those are our highest priority. I think if this was to happen, partnerships and stakeholders mentioned. And system-wide improvements and improvements in service. So that's kind of it. I want to kind of run through some frequently asked questions because this is decision been made? Nope. Obviously, you guys know that as you're making the decision. This is kind of for everyone behind me. As Mayor Mickelson noted, I guess we're looking at May 6th. Not addressed earlier. I think I touched on that. Budget, priorities, delayed fixes. And I'll just mention this because I know Councilman Zotti and I'm not sure who else might have been on, but yeah, in 2017 or so, it was bantered about pretty closely when we were of bringing this area. And that was just budget concerns at that time. That was just budget concern. So, I mean, the Civic Center has been kind of the tip of the spear when times get lean in Rock Springs for a long time. Why not renovate? I believe I covered that as well. You know, I don't know that that's the best use of our funding. Programs transitioned. Right now, as far as I know, staff will just be reassigned. And then, like I said, we'll consider future attrition options or opportunities, or if we've expanded our services, this would constitute basically a redistribution of Parks and Rec staffing. And yeah, we'd want to figure out how to best use all of our personnel to create that service. So that could mean a lot of things, but that would be the goal. Yeah, I want to avoid rising costs and sudden closures. So I guess the thing that I'm hoping from you is we need a commitment to investment or a commitment to divestment. I think we've been laying in the middle for long enough and just figuring it out year to year. So tough task. It's a tough task for us too, either way. So, but we're gonna run with the decision with full effort, and that will be our goal. So, a question I've gotten a lot, the last one. If I only use the Civic Center, I get a refund. In speaking with Mayor Mickelson, in a prorated basis, we would probably be supplying those to those who requested it. So if there's someone that refuses to transfer the rec center, that would probably happen. So real quickly, because I put out this survey, I'm just going to give some responses. We had 537 responses when we turned it off at 4 o'clock today. I'm going to let you guys kind of go ahead and read through that. Yeah, as far as the cross section of people who answered this, I assume most of the people were people that really cared about the Civic Center. So whether it's statistically valid or not, I couldn't say, but we did get responses across the board on these, mixed on both sides. So there's people that never use it but they don't want to pay for any of the things that they don't use. So I think that's consistent across our tax base. If we don't use it, we don't want to pay for it. So you can see where, yeah, most of the people, like I said, the Civic Center is vitally important to, a good portion of the people. And then, there was that 1% or that 24% on the bottom. Didn't think it was valuable at all. How often does it get used? You could say it's a pretty equal little pie chart from not using it to using it daily. The usage type, this kind of try to give us an idea of the people where they are. And like I said, there's 25% that aren't using it at all. But yeah, you can see, everything is pretty well represented in there. It's split pretty well evenly. Youth programs, obviously one of the things we tried to work on. How would it impact? So, it's either new. There's about 40 to 60 people that didn't mention it or want it closed. And then right through there, you can see the reasons for why they don't want it closed, access, convenience, youth programs. So like I said, some of this stuff is going to travel. Access and pool, those don't travel, but yeah, those are some of that. Bigger pie chart. I don't know how much you can read this, but this was the conversation about what would you support with regard to raising funds. More of a metric of where does everyone feel, I guess this might be some information if there's another opportunity, if we want to try to introduce a tax or a special initiative for rec programming or anything city related. This is where people are at, and 20, I think it was 2% said they don't want to pay more. there was a bunch of people that say, I don't want to pay for any taxes. But yeah, is kind of a mix of everything once you got out of special tax district, fundraising, tax increase, or not paying anything more for it. As you can see, very important to keep it open, 45%. Open-ended comments. So at the end of this, yeah, there was some very varied answers, but coded into some similarity here. Yeah, there's the strongest support was to keep it open. Then next, oppose but understand, and no comment. Less people wanted to have an open, or just wanted to type anything in, and you can go down the list and kind of see these things all land in issues that we've already talked about. A lot of them got into the weeds, talking nothing about the Civic Center, so they didn't need to be in there. But that's basically it, guys. There's minutia upon minutia in the cracks of this everywhere. So I guess I would take any questions.
Before I turn it over to the council for questions, I want to address the audience. I was obviously not here for the last 40 years. In fact, 40 years ago, I was in like fourth grade. But when I look at our city and what the future trajectory looks like, the Civic Center was, and this may have been the right choice then, right? I wasn't here, I don't know, but it was allowed to get to a place where the cost of rehabilitating it is incredibly high. The rec center is in need of $5 to $7 million of work now. And if we don't start making some really awful choices, or at least in my case, my grandkids are going to have a bunch of civic centers that are falling apart. And I don't think that that is an acceptable trajectory for our city. So while I recognize that it is a tremendous loss to the community, I don't want to be sitting on my porch in 30 years and hear about the city's talking about closing the rec center because it hasn't been maintained for the last 3 decades, because the people in these positions weren't willing to really assess what can we afford as a city. And as we've been working through next year's budget, we've had to cut $12 million in requests out of that budget in order to get to a place where it's balanced. So if the choice is to keep the Civic Center open, then I need to know from the community, what are we getting rid of in order to afford that? Because we don't have excess funds. It's not a like, you know what, despite living on the side of the town, I really hate the Civic Center. It sure would be cool if we close it. It's how do we most responsibly use the public funds we have to ensure the broadest access? And I will tell you, both of my children played hockey. I love hockey. And if we could save the Civic Center by shutting down the ice rink, great. Because that would be the decision that's best for our community. It's not what's best for Max right now. It's what's best for Rock Springs 50 years from now. And when we look at the various needs of all of our facilities, and in doing the budget process, we've got a roof that's leaking right now at the rec center, and the funding to fix that is in the budget. But if we have to save the Civic Center, we are going to have to pick between letting the rec center decay and trying to salvage the Civic Center. And then some council and mayor, and it will not be me, I don't know about the rest of these guys, in 10 or 15 years is going to be hearing from JJ, we need, 15 years from now, $4 million to fix the roof at the rec center because we have mold. And so that's kind of the decision that I'm faced with. And I've lived here for a very long time. So I am very aware of how deeply important the Civic Center is to people and what an unpleasant, difficult conversation this has to be. I just want everyone to really understand that this is not an off-the-cuff, flippant decision coming from me, right, as the mayor. It's my recommendation to council. They have to decide to affirm or reject it. But in looking at the needs of our city as a whole, and how do we ensure that 30, 40 years from now, we are still able to offer lots of wonderful opportunities, this is the only avenue that I see. I recognize, and again, I can't go back in time, but if I could, I would smack, in fact, some people around. The way the rec center is designed is insane, unless you are 19 and on the cross-country team. Right? And so we are looking at, and these would be costs, but I think this cost makes sense, looking at, is there a space that we could put in additional parking that is restricted to people with mobility issues so that you could walk in on the main level and you don't have to do the workout to get to the front desk to do the workout to get to the workout that you're going to do. Like, I am fully aware of those limitations. So it is not just we're closing the Civic Center, and if you have trouble getting up those steps or that ramp, too bad. It would cause additional costs so that we could make that a really functional building. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone understood where I was coming from, and then I will now turn it over to council for questions for Mr. Seaverud.
Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
Just one quick question. I've got two questions. One on the poll you had. Now, how was that brought to the public? It wasn't a random sample. It was, how was that?
No, definitely. So ETC did the statistically valid survey for Barry Dunn. Those are pretty expensive. We were trying to get as much information before this, so that was brought to the public mostly through social media, Facebook, and then available on our website.
Okay, and I guess my point being, it's heavily favorable to keep.
Correct.
But it's not what we call a scientific.
It's not statistically
So
valid, no. It's a
kind of
sample
those
of the
who-
people that are paying attention on
so we need to-
Facebook and have an opinion on it, yes.
Kind of need to weigh that a little bit when we look at
That, yeah,
those
that would
results.
have to be, I did mention that a little bit, because, yeah, it would probably have a preponderance of Civic Center users, yeah.
So then the next one, it had been brought to our attention that there's potentially a way to maybe go after AML funding for subsidence issues. But when we look at the damage to it, when we did a tour and everything, I know, well, the roof isn't subsidence. The HVAC isn't subsidence. The pool is pushing 50 years. It's not subsidence.
Possibly could be.
It possibly, but at 50 years, it still needs to be.
Right.
you know,
Yeah,
the
no, there's
deck and
other
everything
systems
else.
besides subsidence
And
that
the
have to be
filter
upgraded.
systems and all that.
Correct.
And it had appeared that with the parking lot issues and drainage, a lot of that water was draining back into the building, which could potentially cause
Yeah, more
some-
degradation.
more.
Yeah.
So if we were, and I'm all for, whatever funding's available, let's try to get what we can. If we were to go towards and pursue maybe the AML, do you know the timeline or process that would be in place to see if we're even qualified?
So once that letter landed up here, an email is sent to the AML. Well, we've been talking about AML stuff for Budding Park's about to get some work done on this fall. And so we've been in contact with them. So I sent that question and that letter to them. So unfortunately, the process would be is we would have to apply for insurance, which would be free, and do an application for them to do some drilling to find out if there was mines under there. Unfortunately, the cap is at $275,000 for that insurance, so we could only capture $275,000. Now, if we're moving forward with the Civic Center, we absolutely need to get that and fix whatever we can. Every little bit would help, but I don't know that $275,000, if we would get that, would answer enough of the bill.
Okay, so
And like you mentioned, there's, especially as it's an insurance, is technically what we'd be buying. That insurance would probably come out and assess some of the things you're considering, like, the sloped walkways and our drainage issues that already exist. But it's not going to pay for a new fire panel. It's not going to pay for HVAC. It's not going to pay for electrical. It's going to pay for subsidence related issues.
So to be clear, if they would do drilling and find, hey, yes, there is some subsidence issues, the maximum they would be allowed to pay us would be $275,000 to repair.
As far as his email that he sent, that's correct. Yeah.
Okay. So, and I think that's kind of, because I'm thinking, oh, maybe we could get $1 million or so out of it, depending, but it's not the case.
It's capped at 275.
And then they may look at it and say, okay, 50% is due maybe to subsidence and mining, the other is due to runoff or whatever, potentially, I don't know.
Potentially, yeah. We'd have to look into it deeper. But we just following that letter, we sent an email, and we literally just got our answer back 2 days ago.
Okay.
So yeah.
So it's not,
It's very new. Yeah.
I was hopeful
As far
there'd be
as
more,
following,
but
right. Yeah. It does say 275,000 per loss. What that means, also I'm not sure.
Counselor.
First off, I'd like to thank all the maintenance people that do take care of our rec center. Damon, Steve, they done a hell of a job patching it all together and keeping it going. And I mean, it's still going today. So good job, guys. Because maintenance is a big part of anything we do around here. It's probably one of the biggest parts, so it's important.
And we had a full-time, one of the positions that were lost, Councilman Malonis, was a maintenance man, full-time maintenance man that's been down there. And that was unfunded in 2016, I believe. So almost 9 years without a full-time maintenance man at the Civic. So
they do really
Damien and Steve and Roland Flynn before him and were doing what they could to cover needs. And I would say that a lot of because I was part of this and I have some staff on site here, there's a lot of light maintenance that has to be done by recreation people. They're not very good at that, but we're getting better.
And just this is a crazy idea, but all these stadiums throughout the country have a sponsor. What if we got somebody like Searle Brothers Center or Tata Center, or somebody throws is that even feasible, or any kind of?
I don't think it's
like
unreasonable. I believe Matt McBurnett had suggested that idea before. So something like the Ford Center that's up in Casper. Those are possibilities. I can't say that I've looked into that, especially in the timeline that I've been here, as far as leading a discussion with any of these groups to find out if there's a Solvay Center interest. What we've found and through discussions that we've had from their donations, they're pretty good at coming in at that $10,000, $20,000 donation level or less for a lot of these local organizations, but we haven't seen a community backing level yet, at least, where one of these entities want to completely fund and get behind a facility like that,
All right.
So,
Thank you.
okay.
Council. Okay, with that, then I would welcome comments from. Oh, I'm sorry, I missed you.
It's okay.
Sorry, Councilor Bingham.
Thank you, Your Honor. So thank you for getting all this information together. Appreciate it. And just bringing this information forward. There was some discussions about the National Historic Preservation, just what your views are on that. I know that would really only address the gymnasium, not the other section where the pool is. So just anything that
So
you have.
the historic preservation, and especially with granting as it's related, as I understand it from looking through these in the past, and they're usually match grants. Yes, it would only help the gym. I mean, if that was the goal, is we were going to preserve that, we would absolutely want to chase that. It also does some other interesting things. We have to put that building back to how it was. That means no more basketball nets, and that means no more climbing wall.
Sorry, that's not true.
Is not true?
No, it's not.
Okay. Well, from what I had read, that once you get a historical grant, they want that building to look as it did in the past. So I would have to check that out. But yeah, if my information's wrong, then it's wrong. But to receive some of that granting, that's the way I was informed.
We good? Okay. Thank you. And with that, I will open this up for public comment. We have about 30 minutes, so folks could keep it brief. If you'd like to address us, if you'd please approach the podium and identify yourself and any organization that you may or may not represent.
My name is Heidi Humphreys. I'm with the Rock Springs Historic Preservation Commission. We do not and we are not a part of the Sweetwater County Historical Society. We are a city commissioned, established and empowered by city ordinance to safeguard the historic, archaeological, and cultural heritage of Rock Springs. We are professional historians and archaeologists, and with knowledge of the value of protecting the cultural resources, including intimate knowledge of the National Register of Historic Places. Super nervous, also a little angry. The Civic Center has a connection to the city that runs much deeper than any other park and rec facility in this city. The Old Timers Building was gifted to this city by the Union Pacific Railroad and Coal Company. They built it in honor of men who mined for 20 or more years, and they called them lovingly the Old Timers. These were the men that didn't die in those mines, but they lived and they had families, and their families are still here. And it's that legacy that is embodied by the Old Timers Building, which my understanding is that is structurally sound. And it is the 1970s edition that is failing. And we don't know why it's failing. It could be subsidence. It could be poor construction from the 1970s. But we don't know, and we haven't looked. You brought an architect in to say, this is what we can do to fix this. That architect and all of that money you spent on them did not tell you what the root of the problem is. Now, why would you do that? You don't take your car to the mechanic and say, oh, just top off the oil when the engine is knocking. You ask him, why is the engine knocking? And let's address that problem. The Historic Preservation Commission strongly urges you to consider the AML funding. I think you're misguided in thinking it is simply $275,000. My understanding is that it can be very much more. But until you pursue it, and until you speak to them, and they come and look, and they do what they do, you will not know. So I hope that you do not just poo-poo that off. I hope you pursue that. Former Mayor Dempster also wrote you a letter encouraging you to pursue the AML funding. He's had experience with the funding. Our museum is still standing today because of AML funds that helped fix the subsidence in that building. The Old Timers Building is 96 years old. It's structurally sound. You guys were just lamenting the 40-year-old building that is falling over. They built that thing to stand for how the value they had in the men that mined that coal. And I urge you to keep it standing and keep it available to this community so that we can enjoy the recreation opportunities, the getting together opportunities. That building used to house birthday parties, weddings, and all kinds of receptions. We can still use that space for that. And frankly, historic preservation does not require you to take down basketball nets, because we will, that part of the building, recreation was a part of that building when it was built. Inform yourselves of these details before you go making broad stroke decisions. There are people available on your historic preservation committee that you appoint that are here to help you. Ask us. Thank you.
Ma'am, could you, sorry, in case council has any questions for you.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Council? Councilor Bingham?
So just a question for you on the Historic Museum. Do you know how much AML contributed to that?
I do not, honestly.
Okay.
I do not.
Okay.
Dudley Gardner, whose name and contact information was on the bottom of that letter that was sent to you all, has intimate knowledge of AML.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Your Honor, so we have looked at and acknowledged that that older part of the building is structurally sound compared to the newer section. So the option would be take that down, but then there would still be, and we don't know the cost, but we're looking millions of dollars to bring that older building in compliance with ADA fire code. It would take HVAC, electrical, all the control systems are in the new part of the building, so moving. So we're still looking at several $1 million to get that where it needs to be, which is, we're in a bad spot there.
Absolutely.
And I do, and I like I said before, if we can explore the AML, I think that'd be great. I just don't know what's the process, the timeline, and what are our chances of getting money when we look at things like the roof and that, the electrical. I mean, there's millions of dollars that are already taken out of what they would potentially pay. So I don't think anybody here is against trying to explore ways to find funding to keep that going. So I hope you don't think we're
You're
just,
blowing us off.
yeah, no, and this isn't something that's,
There's a lot of people in this room right now that feel blown off.
but we got to look at, and there's not,
But so let me just add in line with what you are just saying. I hear you that you are willing to hear about lines of money, basically, because that's what we need. Through historic preservation, there are also nationwide, big, small. Sometimes you get it, and all it does is address your ADA compliance. Sometimes you can get a chunk of money, and it addresses your HVAC system. Mm-hmm. The thing is that you didn't come to us. We could have had boots on the ground seeking out this money years ago had you asked us, because that is what this commission does. And so now we are behind your curve, and we are asking you for some time to pursue this sort of funding to help this place stay open for the people who enjoy it, and also for the people who apparently don't want to pay for it. Because yes, guess what? I have heard from people who use it and gasp and say, why don't they charge me more to go down there? They should charge me more. And then you have people who are, I won't pay for that. So I feel you, I do. But I'm here to tell you, on behalf of the Historic Preservation Committee, we are here to help you ask us.
and I got a question. I'm going to push back a little bit on that. As the committee, where have you been? Because we've been dealing with the museum and everything else.
We have
Where you
floated.
have-
We have floated to Mayor Mickelson in the past, and we have gotten the impression from the mayor that he is not interested in the historic value of the Civic Center.
I think that's, I don't.
And
Ma'am,
maybe that is
I've
misconstrued,
had
but I'm
one-
here to tell you that that is
one
the impression
contact.
that I carry.
This month, and I actually have two questions. Well, one's a statement and one's a question. Happily, the city does not have the money. Like say we close the Civic Center, we don't have the funding to go demo it. Like the building's not going anywhere, right? Because that is millions of dollars, which is a part of the problem. When we first started seriously having this conversation, one of the first things that I asked about was, can we just get rid of the new section that was built in the 70s and save that UP Cole building, right? And millions. And I will ask you for help, because one of the things, and this is my third budget that has come up every year, the original City Hall facade is crumbling. Mm-hmm. You walk around that building and there's building dandruff, right? And it's generally bad when chunks of the building are falling down. If you could find me $750,000 so that we could get some stonemasons in to address that, because and I will tell everyone frankly, if I have to pick between the UP Cole building and the original City Hall, I'm going to pick City Hall, right? If that's the choice budgetarily that I have to make. And listen, folks, I'm totally open, save the Civic Center, but we are at a place budgetarily where saving the Civic Center is going to mean giving up something else. And I'm open to that. So if y'all want to talk to the golfers about us not having a golf course, I haven't been golfing in like 7 years. It doesn't make any difference to me.
I have never been a everything is black and white person. I honestly believe there is some place in the middle that everyone can meet if you're willing to see it, if you have the imagination to see it. I don't think that you're all or nothing. Again, okay, so now let me speak as your citizen and not as your Historic Preservation Committee person. There's a place to meet in the middle. It doesn't sound like you want to. You sound like my dad telling me that I am grounded because I have done something that he does not approve. And I don't appreciate that. I don't appreciate that
Okay,
from my mayor.
so here's my issue, right? Because Parks and Rec is not our only department.
Mm-hmm.
Our animal control building is crumbling and failing. No, these are real issues that we're dealing with.
You know what? I understand that they are. I understand that there were mayors before you who probably made similar kinds of decisions that you find in front of you right now. I wish I could wave a wand and give you a magic answer that the whole room was like, yahoo, that is the plan and we're going to go with it.
Same.
Right? Okay. All I'm saying is that there are a group of people here who can help you with this one little thing amongst your big pot of things that you have to deal with. Just please let us. Give us 24 months to find you money. Give that to us.
Okay, so my problem is that I have to have money now. And that's where,
Okay. And
that's my problem.
And so we're here having problems together. And I would like to let other people behind me speak.
For sure.
And
Fair.
so, thank you. I appreciate your time very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Billy Shalata, native from Rock Springs for the last 72 years. You know, a little Uvalde, wonderful job. Wonderful job. Good selection for a department head for the rec. We love you, JJ.
He's thanking me.
Well, I want to apologize to this council and mayor. As part of a council for years, we did kick that 12-ounce can down the road. Now it's a 55-gallon drum, from what I understand. But you can't take away what it's given to this community. I don't think anybody can, or would even try to. I remember coming here in 1972, and it was the Old Timers building. I'm going, Old Timers? Well, I'm not an old timer. I mean, why was it named that? Well, then I find out it was built in 1925. So I guess it was an Old Timers building, but they had so many events going there, from parties to Christmas parties, and all the mines had their kids there and giving out gifts. And I remember the first time I met Nubby Dave Nubby Solovich. He was in a closet handing out basketballs so kids could play on the basketball court there. And you had the odd little stage, and you had a little weight room. And you had the driver's license plate, our driver license bureau there. And we've come so far. I want to thank all the councils and mayors in the past for giving us the opportunity to have these types of recreational quality of life things that this community needs, especially on this side of the belt loop. We have nothing. We have nothing. Even if you shelter that building and let it stand there, it's just going to just stand there and be nothing. We have a white building over here that we've been trying to do something with for years. We got funding for that from the State Land Investment Board. Millions of dollars has been invested in that building, that First Security Bank building, and it's structurally sound. Now I see that it's for sale for a fraction of the price, just to try to recoup the money you've put into it. And I know you guys are good people. I know every one of you, and you're all good people. You have hard decisions to make, very hard decisions. I've talked with, these are customers, these are our extended family. And the employees are very, very dear. So, and the young lady was right. This is a historical thing for me and for most of the people in this room. And we hate to see you lose it. But we do understand that you may have to. And I can compromise. I can find a way to transition. And I know JJ's worked hard to keep this thing going. And you will do it I think your hearts tell you to do. But I know I'm going to miss it. Sorry.
Thank you, sir.
Your Honor, can I just do some follow-up and some comments on, the question was asked, why now? Why wait? I can tell you, since I've been on council, I've seen we're going to have issues. And I've been an advocate to at least address this or and look at the Civic Center and ask the question, what do we do? And do we need to close it or what do we need to do? Because we've been kicking the can down for years. There hasn't been the political will to ask the question. We now have a mayor that's here that's going to ask the question and try and do what's right. Whether you like it or not, the question has to be asked and we have to deal with this. This is something that I can tell you, because there's been maintenance issues, this has been ongoing. I realize that. I know that. And every year I've questioned the Civic Center because we have been delaying maintenance issues on these. So the question, why now? It's because now we have somebody who's willing to take the political heat to make the right decision for the community. And that's what we're asking for, everybody right now, is for your input to help us make that decision. Before, there was no will to even bring it up to get to this point. But we've got to deal with it. And so for everyone being here, we greatly appreciate your input and helping us and guiding us on what you feel is best for the community as well. That's all we're trying to do, is what's best for Rock Springs. Thank you.
Your Honor,
Yes, sir.
I know this is a very touchy subject for a lot of people in here. When I was campaigning, it was a very sensitive subject to the people of Ward 3. From what I've heard today so far, regardless of what decision we make, it's going to have to close down for a couple of years to either to renovate it or to do the historical preservation. We still have to get rid of that newer portion of the building. We are not going to doze the building down, so it'll be okay. And also, yes, I am campaigned on not letting it get tore down, but we're going to have to do something because push is coming to shove right now.
Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you so much for hosting this. JJ, good job. Definitely all the maintenance people, thank you for, I know what it's like to have to patchwork things and keep them going. I want you to talk to Father Bill. We have 2 churches, and then call the bishop in Cheyenne, please.
Mr. Allen.
Great advocate. I'll stay on task.
Could you please introduce yourself for those of
I
us?
apologize. I meant to do that, and I got all excited by her, so I appreciate that. Steve Allen, former councilman, Ward 3. Where do we start? Mayor, I certainly appreciate you taking this on. We need to answer the question, right? And the question is, what's the will? What's the will of the community? It's not an easy decision, and we are where we're at right now. I think the will is getting to be very clear as to, at least from my perspective, that we want to save the Civic Center. The question then is, how do we do it? That's the real key. I won't read the vision or mission statements behind you because I know what they say. I wrote them. Mayor Oblock was a mayor at the time when we passed it. We were either really good writers or these really stuck because they're still sitting on the walls 25 years later. Those are the hearts of the community, the legacy of the community. That's what the intent was. I will address opportunity cost. I have to. My economics professor in me's got to bring that up. Your opportunity cost is not throwing good money after bad. Opportunity cost is a tertiary effect of what your decision is. Your opportunity cost, good or bad here, is quality of life. If you don't do it, what happens to the east end of town and quality of life? If you do it, what's the trade-off, right? What's the quality of life for recreation as a whole? And that's the question we got to answer, right? How do we get to that point to satisfy the mayor's point? It's about money. I get that. We've talked AML. I thought, JJ, you did a really good job in asking a lot of those questions about private-public partnership raising fees, recreational service districts. But we also have TIFs, and we also have revenue bonds. We have muni bonds. There are a lot of other options out there that are money quicker into the coffers. The question is what does it look like in 5 years if we decide to keep it? And what's that stair-step plan to get us to that point? Not one of those things have been presented to this point. And Barry Dunn, they didn't say it was going to be costly. They didn't put any numbers in that. I read the analysis, and for those of you who got my fact sheet in your email box, right? I went through it with a fine-tooth comb with my lovely wife, whose family is part of the old timers. They've been mining coal here since 1892. I live in number 4 because I live across the street where we've had 3 generations grow up. Because her grandfather worked in number 4, walked out of the house, went right to the number 4 mine, right there by Veterans Park. So, yeah, there's a lot of passion for me to keep it. Plus, let's be honest, Ward 3, that's our jewel. And I was told the minute I got on council, whatever you do, you don't lose the Civic Center. So here I am, okay? I'm willing to stand up. I know we bring out the budgets. We are 12 million over on budgets. Yeah, I'm in budget session myself. We're probably going to be 4 to 5 million, but it's a wish list, right? You come in and everybody says, oh, what do I want to make my department the best? Well, I need $12 million. We were in industrial siding trying to get an MOU. I had a town of 400 people, wanted $8 million out of 10 million available. And you got 16 people at the trough. Well, budgets are the same way, right? We always say, we give you the wish list and cut them down. So to say that we had to cut 12 million isn't quite accurate just yet, right? When we know that according to the Wyoming Economic Analysis Division, use tax is up 18.8%, sales tax up 7.4%. That 7.4, not counting use tax, just sales tax, is equivalent to a 1.5 million increase to the budget to you, the city of Rock Springs. Because you get roughly 22% of any sales tax that come out of the county. And those are rough numbers. I'll give you those are rough numbers.
Mr. Allen, if I could, the last 2 months, our sales and use tax payment has been down $500,000.
I understand.
So
I understand. And these are for fiscal year 23, 24. But don't forget, you've got how many major projects coming in? Now, Councilor Bingham knows I know these numbers. Matt does a great job for the city in finance. He knows I know the numbers. And so we won't go into the details of the 30 million that's coming over the next 5 years. And that's just on 2 major projects. So this is where we look at our forecast, right? And this is all I'm advocating, right? Is that how do we meet that second tier? Is that what's our forecast look like for the next 5 years? Today is hard, but what do we look down the road? And I can go into details and numbers, but I won't bore anybody. I'm just saying, here's what the state's telling you of where you're headed. I know what's on the industry economic development side. And I even started with Frontier Carbon Solutions or Moxa out by Granger, because that piping they're going to take from the Trona Patch into Granger, that piping gets delivered here. It's pointed delivery. Sales tax is split. You're the king dog in population in Sweetwater County for sales tax, right? That's your number one generator. Yes, property tax, we're going to take a hit, 25%. Look at your mills, right? Those 8 mills are not going to be healthy. We're hurting too, I get it. But I'm just saying that those are examples of the whole picture. Just as bad as the legislator looked at certain counties at 112% in 5 years when they were the second to the lowest mill levy and said, oh, prices are rising, we got to cut property. You can't take one data set and find your answer. It's going to take a multi-level solution to get where we're going. And I have no problem sitting down. And I threw out some numbers. There's more. I keep a little bit in my pocket, right? Old salesman in me. Rob and I sell insurance. We know. You got to have a little bit in the pocket. I'll save that for May 6th. But I want to thank the mayor. Are there any questions, council members? And
Your Honor? Yes, sir. What were the 2 major projects that you
Project
discussed
West and
earlier?
Pacific Soda.
One of them projects is going to be done because they just bought Genesis.
No, they're not. They're still going to continue.
They're going to build their $2 billion plant.
It's delayed.
They're still going on. December 2025, they start. All they did was a postponement to December 2025.
Okay. Thank you.
I agree with you. Impact monies are not guaranteed, right? They got to start construction before you see them. That's a 5-year project. That's fine. But can't you forecast it a little bit to kind of go, you know, what if, right? When you look at revenue bonds and you start saying, how do we weigh that out, right? This is about time. Time's your biggest asset here, right? If you're looking at money, because you say we got to close it for 2 years. What if we didn't close it and we did that stagger step and started replacing the things we could now? Get it on a 5-year plan. I'm not hearing anybody come with a 5-year plan of how we're going to resolve it. I hear a lot of suspicion about what's wrong, but no argument about how we're going to fix it and what does it look like. And Mayor, you were asked twice by a pretty young lady, I can say, what is your vision in the next 10 years? We don't know where it's at when it comes to the Civic Center. That's what we got to work on. That's the discussion. This is where this young lady said, we need 24 months, right? Time is our biggest asset. You can't close it today because you definitely cut off any chance of any answers at that time, from my opinion. But Mayor, thanks for posing the question. It's time. It's time for us to solve it. Questions?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Stephen, for being here. And I am aware of, just for the council edification, that the part of the delay of the projects has been the state has decreased the staff in the DEQ to review mine permits. So with the cutting, it has its effects, and that's why they haven't started yet, because they're going through the mine permit process. So we thought this second and third quarter we'd see construction. We just haven't seen anything yet. So you're correct. Have you heard anything? Another concern that hasn't been talked about is just direct distribution. And have you heard anything from the legislature as far as the future of that? Because that could affect revenues too. It's just curious.
Direct distribution from which?
From the state, to the cities.
Talking about backfill?
Yeah.
No, it's ixnay.
Okay.
Our real concern, and I'll be honest with you, as a government entities, we understand the property tax and discussion this year, that 25% is key. But next year, we need to watch 153 and we need to watch the referendum. And those, again, to that forecasting, need to be into consideration. But I'm a sunny side up kind of guy. That's how I like my eggs. And don't forget, you got jackalope coming, you got the uranium mine, got a hydrogen. You guys not heard about all these wonderful things coming?
No, and unfortunately,
and I don't want to be Pollyanna, Mayor, and I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I am a very big believer in a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush, and so it is until those things are realized. I mean, we've all seen all of the magic things that are going to solve our issues. I've been told by many legislators that their priority next session is to go take a very hard look at direct distribution with the intent to reduce it and to increase the share of our taxes that the state government collects. We don't know those. All we know is what is our situation today and how do we address that? And I do because we are going to have to wrap up. One, I'm certainly happy because there are lots of people here to schedule another workshop so that folks have more opportunity to speak. And two, I have been told by many people, if you close the Civic Center, you're not getting reelected. And happily, from my perspective, if you are sitting in an elected position and your focus is on getting reelected, you don't belong there. My job is making the decision that's best for our community. And if that gets me thrown out on my tuchus, great, I did my job. So we will certainly continue to look at this, but I am at a place where if I fix the Civic Center roof, I let the Rec Center roof leak. And if we can come up with, millions of dollars, and when we approached AML, their response was the maximum that we will pay for structural damage is $275,000, right? So that's the data that we got from AML. I'm really excited they're coming to do the mitigation work in Bunning Park because we have three very shallow voids in that park that need to be addressed. If I could compel them to do something about the Bitter Creek, I definitely would, but I can't. And so it is it is just a very complicated issue. And this is one of those. My kids took swimming lessons at Civic Center. My youngest learned how to ride a bike at the Civic Center. That's my favorite sauna to use in town. I live on this side of town. And in answering your wife's question, if I had my way, if at some point we can do a public-private partnership to get a field house in our community, I don't want to put it across the street from the rec center because the west and north side of town have everything. I would like it at Veterans Park so that we start reinvesting in the east side of town, because long-term, if we don't, this community will fail. Whether or not the Civic Center is a part of that is the point of this conversation.
Well, and I think you're absolutely right, Mayor. And I just go back to, let's get the devil in the details first, because we're not even close to saying what do the details of the solutions look like. And there's lots of options. And I would just state finally, because it's your forum and you get the choice to wrap it up in respect for your position, is that you don't get to use the statement of, I can't forecast things that burden the hand, burden the bush, because you just did it with $200,000 monument to the dead in the hopes that the bricks would be sold, and they're not sold yet. So if you're going to use the argument, use it consistently would be my recommendation.
I would point out that was a decision that was made before I got here. So, but there is one gentleman who would like to speak, and then we will end
Absolutely.
this
Thank
session.
you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Appreciate it.
Ladies and gentlemen of the city, city council, mayor, thanks for taking the time to let me speak. My name is Mike Scores. I'm a lifelong resident of Rock Springs. Been here my whole life, dedicated taxpayer, worked really hard. I do want to express, throughout my life, this facility has been a cornerstone of, our life, our community. As a child, I cherished the countless hours that we spent playing at the facility. My kids now go there. They have swimming lessons every week. It's really, really challenging to even get swimming lessons in this town, just so you know. So it'd probably be very difficult after this is closed to find those, just based on what we're seeing right now, just as an example. And as an adult, we still use the facility. So I think it's well represented here with the citizens behind me that this thing is important, as we've kind of heard. Every time I'm at the Civic Center, it's bustling with activity. The thing is packed, like standing room only. You can't park in the back parking lot. You can't find anywhere to sit. It's that busy. It's that used. It's not like it's, a facility that's not being valued and used in our community. I think you know that. I think closing the Civic Center would be a huge disservice to our city. I really would. When I think about, back when we were building things like the Rec Center and the Civic Center, the time when our city was building, growing, expanding. I hear, Mr. Searood, your presentation, and it sounds like we're on the decline in the city, in my opinion. Deferred maintenance for many, many years, hard to make, budget, hard to make payroll, cutting positions. It's alarming, right? It's alarming to see that our city is in stagnation, maybe, right? I look at other cities. I was just in Laramie, and downtown is bustling. New shops being built everywhere. Casper's growing. We have amazing industry here. We have the only world's largest soda ash, mine, in our area. We have amazing industry, a ton of money in here. So it makes me question, right? And I realize, that some of you are just recently here, but it makes me wonder, is this mismanagement and gross negligence from years past to let it get to this point? And I mean that. So, whenever I see a city like this failing to thrive, I do look at its leadership. I look at its citizens, and I think we need to come together to try and find a solution here. I realize the position you're in. I myself am a senior leader of a company. I do budgets every single year, right? I get that you guys cannot, get everything you want, have your cake and eat it too. But I do think there's some other solutions we need to explore, and I've heard a few tonight. Myself, I did a few hours of research using AI, amazing tool these days. There's a FEMA Building Resilience Infrastructure and Communities grant. can fund up to $50 million, and it helps for buildings that are destabilized that need some safety support. Maybe that's an option. There's some other grants here. I've listed about 5 or 6, but to save time, I won't list them out. Some were mentioned before that. I think we should explore those. But I also urge our citizens behind me and those maybe online, and more so our companies, to come together. And if you want this thing to stick around, let's put the work in and let's try and save this thing. It'd be amazing if we could get a partnership with one of our major industry players or multiple industry players to put real money in. And I'm not talking a few $1,000s, I'm talking millions. If you want your name on the side of the building, I think that'd be great. I'd be all for that. Lastly, the engineering firm study suggests 30 million, 15 to 30 million I saw today. I do a lot of those reviews myself, right? If you ask an engineering firm or don't ask an engineering firm specifically for the Cadillac plan versus the budget-minded plan, they'll give you the Cadillac plan. So I guess I'd ask for that, the detail of those research plans or the engineering reviews to understand, are we really asking for the most beautiful building reno ever, or are we, being kind of budget-minded here? And I just want to second the last gentleman's opinion on the 5-year vision. I think we should do that. That's us being future-minded leaders, and less so just reactive. So lastly, I'll just end with, I really hope that our city can help build itself and not break down. I'd love to have my generation, my kids' generation, and their kids' generation live here and be proud of this place. So we can, have a long, cherished life. I really appreciate your time. I hope you'll take these words into serious consideration and work with us to help, build this back to the way it needs to be. Thank you.
Your Honor, can I, real quick, and based off just with the meetings we've had from the building committee and that, and your comment, and I think it's assumed that these are engineering estimates. They are not. These are low end to high end. They're not engineering statement. We're trying to answer the question, okay, where do we see we are? And if we look at the low end, what do we do? How do we move forward? Then the next step is hire an engineering firm, which is going to cost tens of thousands of dollars to just do the forensics on that. So if we do plan move forward, then we hire the engineering firm, find out exactly what's there, what those costs are going to be, and it's a step-by-step process. We're at where Barry and Dunn and the architects and that came in. They gave us an assessment, and then the group out of Salt Lake, is that who gave us the numbers on the pool and that you were in your presentation? That wasn't an engineering firm. That was estimates from.
Councilman, that group was Winters Griffith, and they're out of Cheyenne, and they're
Cheyenne,
architects only. So their recommendation was to dig further, but based on their specialty and as far as they could recommend, that's the numbers they came up with. And he could be right. You could be right. Those could be. This is what it would be to set right.
That's why there's such a range there, though. I mean, so those aren't definite, but those are the steps we're looking at and what we would have to proceed. And so now, is it okay if we know we have these cost base? Is it prudent to spend $50,000-$60,000 to do the engineering study to then just find, well, yeah, no, they were right, let's not move forward? So we're going through those steps. That's what we're trying to accomplish.
I appreciate that clarification, Counselor. So just to clarify, it seems like those are, and I know that process, so I didn't realize that's the phase you're speaking to. It's an assumption then, right? Mm-hmm. It's not hard fact. There's no actual review yet that's line by line, right? Okay. So again, for everybody, it could be less than 15 million, right? I mean, truly. So put that in perspective. But I can appreciate it can be well more as well. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, sir.
Mike, I appreciate you coming. I appreciate everybody coming down here and getting involved. I wish I'd see this many people every time we have a council meeting. But could you send me, I appreciate you doing that research. Is there a way you could send that forward to the city council?
Absolutely.
your
If I could
FEMA and
get
all
an
your,
email.
all your money that you came up with, I'd really like to take a look at that.
Yeah.
And have it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, certainly. If I could get a email.
All our
maybe at
stuff's
the end.
on the website.
Oh, is it okay?
All our emails?
Yep. I'll
you
forward
do
it
that-
over to you.
If you just grab an agenda, it's always
Perfect.
Okay, yeah. Thank you very
One
much.
Thank
just
you.
Real quick, and I'm sorry, it addresses these. We have worked with a consultant and to find grants and to find money for various things that they've done. They've done a really good job for us. What we find on a lot of these is there's a lot of money. You see this, oh, there's 50 million here or 100 million here, but you get into the weeds and they are very restrictive on sometimes, some things that they allow and not. So it's nice, yes, there's a lot of grants out there, but they are, there's a lot of stipulations to them, and you have to fall into certain requirements to get those. So, I mean, I just want to let everybody know, we have looked at grant options, we continue to look at grant options, and we have had some success with them, so.
I appreciate that clarification, Counselor. If I could ask you to commit to providing the citizens with a copy of that, report out from your, from your consultant, that'd be useful for us to help communicate what you're doing. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you all. That we're adjourned. We'll reconvene at 7:05 so people have a chance to use the restroom.